Lesson number 54 is all about ratios and proportions. And to start off our lesson, we've got a definition here of what a ratio is. A ratio is just a comparison of two numbers. And when we have a ratio, we might have a ratio like 10/15. Maybe we have 10 boys in the class and 15 girls in the class. Okay, we're comparing that 10 to 15. Now one thing we want to know about a ratio is that we always have to reduce it. So whenever we have a ratio like 10/15, we'd want to reduce that to 2/3 by dividing both numbers by 5. Now when we have ratios, we can use them to help us solve proportions. Let's look at our next example. A proportion looks like this. A proportion says that one fraction is going to be equal to another fraction, or one ratio is going to be equal to another ratio. Now the way that we solve these proportions is to use cross products. And what we want to do, we're going to rewrite 20 over 15 is equal to 4 over x. And to use cross products, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply across. We're going to find out first what 15 times 4 is. Well, 15 times 4. 15 times 4 is equal to 60. Then we need to figure out what we have on our other cross product. The nice thing about cross products is they're always the same. So in this one we have 20 times x must be equal to 60 again, because cross products are always equal to each other in a proportion. So we can figure out what x is. 20 times what number, x, is equal to 60? Well, hopefully you said x is equal to 3, because 20 times 3 is equal to 60, and we have our answer. Now if we were to write this whole thing out in the equation, what it would look like, we would say, well, we'd say 20x, 20 times x going down is going to be equal to 15 times 4, what we have going up. Well, we know 20 times x is equal to 60. What we just saw, we know we're going to divide by 20 to isolate the x. Divide by 20, and 60 divided by 20 must be 3. So x is equal to 3. Both ways get us the same answer. Personally, I prefer working with the first method, where we look and find our cross product of the two things we know. Then we look at the cross product of what we don't know, but we now have the answer to what it should be equal to, and then find our missing value. Let's go ahead and move on to our next example. Let's say we have this. We're going to evaluate x to the y power if x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 3. We know when we substitute values in for variables, we want to use parentheses. So in this, we know that x is equal to 4, so we're going to substitute the 4 in where we originally saw x, and y is equal to 3. So what we're going to get is 4 to the third power. All that means is 4 times 4 times 4. Well, we know 4 times 4, that's 16. And 16 times 4 more, well, if we have 16 times 2, think about this with mental math here, 16 times 2, that's equal to 32. We really have 16 times 4, so we have to double our 32, and we have 64. That's the exact same thing as 16 times 4, so we've got our answer. Okay, so 4 to the third power is equal to 64. Let's move on to our next slide. Alright, we've got the p root of q if p is equal to 3 and q is equal to 64. So let's go ahead and substitute in again. So we're talking about roots this time, and this time we have a third root because we know that the p value is equal to 3. So we're going to substitute in, we're going to use parentheses. So we've got the third root of 64. We want to find the third root of 64. That means what number times itself 3 times is equal to 64. So we're going to put something times something times something is equal to 64. We've got to know what number times itself 3 times gives us 64. Let's look at an example. Let's say we have 2 times 2 times 2. Well, we know 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So that's too small. It's not 64. 3 times 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. That's too small. Let's try our next one. 4 times 4 times 4. Oh, 4 to the third power. We saw that in the last slide. We know 4 to the third power is 64. So we have this. This will be 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 64. So our answer for this problem, we'll go back to our light blue, is equal to 4. We'll box our 4 and we're all done. Just the one 4 is the answer here because 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 64. We'll practice this concept some more with our lesson practice, page 175 in our next class. Make sure you've got your notes completed, and I'll see you soon.